Hi there, good morning and welcome to this morning's assembly continuing on the theme of responsibility. The Lord be with you and also with you. It's good that you can make it. I'm actually carrying out one of my responsibilities, walking the dogs. If I just pan round, hopefully you might be able to see, there goes Holly, there she goes, meow, and there's Asha. So last time we looked at the parable of the talents, and if you remember, we looked at the master who went away on a long trip and he entrusted his money, his finances to three people. He gave one 5 talents, he gave one 2 talents, he gave one talent, and the people who were given the 5 talents and the 2 talents, they went away and they invested what they put to good use what they were given, and that produced double. 5 became 10, 2 became 4. But the person with 1 talent buried it in the ground. And you know what? The one message for me that comes through loud and clear from last week is to make sure that whatever gift or talent you've got, and you have got a gift and you have got a talent, you have got things that you're good at that you can help other people with, that we don't bury it in the ground, that we use it. So that was a really strong message that I heard from last week, and I hope it was for you too. So I hope in the last week you've been able to use your gifts and talents, and it could be the simplest little thing like being able to make the perfect cup of tea. Now that's a talent that you can use that. So perhaps, you can have a think about, what do you do really well? What do you enjoy that could help other people? I've given you making a good cup of tea or being a good listener as just 2 good examples, but I'm sure there are other things that you do which bless other people. So perhaps you can have a think about that. This week we're going to be looking at the story of the calling of Samuel, who would have been a young person at the time, and how God called him to an amazing life following God. So a little bit more about that later. I wonder, in a little exercise now, whether you could have a think about what responsibilities you have in your family. I'll give you a clue. One of them might be, I don't know, well, I'm doing one now, walking the dog. What about doing the washing up? Give you a minute or so now to have a chat, perhaps with the person next to you, or to jot down some thoughts yourself, what responsibilities you have in your home. Okay, have a think. You've got 1 minute, go. Okay, so how did you get on with that, with all these things that you do around the house? Maybe one of them was making a good cup of tea. Very good. I don't know if you could make one as good as that. I made that one myself. Very nice. Let's have a think. What things might you have come up with? Doing the washing up, loading the dishwasher. What about doing the dusting? You only good at dusting? I'm not so good at dusting, not really. Walking the dog, putting food down for if you have a cat, cleaning out the hamster, washing the kitchen floor, I don't know, laying the table. All these things that you could possibly do to help around the house might be your responsibility. Whatever you do it with all your heart, and bless your family and help out, especially at the moment when we really need to look out for each other. Okay, we've had a look at the things we do around the house. We're going to watch a video now which is all about the calling of Samuel, who was a prophet in the Old Testament, and when he was a small child, so maybe as a young person you can relate to this. He's called by God, and perhaps we'll have a look at some of the responsibilities that he had in the temple. So have a look out for those as you watch this video. Thank you.
Stories of the Bible. God speaks to Samuel. This is Samuel.
Hi!
Samuel was the son of Hannah.
Hey, Samuel!
Hannah prayed for God to give her a son, and God did. So Hannah gave Samuel back to God.
See you, Samuel. Bye, Mom.
And Samuel grew up in the temple serving under Eli, the priest.
Hi, Eli.
As Samuel grew up, he learned how to serve God from Eli. Samuel lived in the house of God, but he did not know God or what God's voice sounded like. In those days, messages from God were rare. But one night after Eli had gone to bed, Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle when suddenly God called out, "Samuel!"
Huh?
Samuel got up and ran to Eli and said, "Did you call me?"
Nami?
Eli said, "I didn't call you. Go back to bed." So Samuel did. Then God called out again, "Samuel!"
Huh?
And again Samuel got up and ran to Eli asking, "Did you call me?"
Nami?
Eli said, "I didn't call you. Go back to bed." So Samuel did. God called Samuel for a third time, "Samuel!"
Huh?
And Samuel went to Eli yet again. After 3 times, Eli realized that God was trying to speak to Samuel. So Eli taught Samuel to say, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening."
Okay.
Samuel went back to bed, and God came and called as before, "Samuel, Samuel!" And Samuel said, "Speak, your servant is listening." God told him many things about what would happen to Israel. As Samuel grew up, God was with him, and everything God spoke through Samuel came true. Samuel was seen as a great prophet of God because he could hear the voice of God, and he listened when God spoke to him.
I hope you enjoyed that video. It's about a young man learning to serve God and to carry out his responsibilities in the temple. So we had Eli, who was the old priest who was asleep in bed each time Samuel came through to him and say, I've just heard a voice. I thought it was you calling me. And Eli the priest was in charge of the country. He was in charge of Israel at the time, and he was also a priest, and he was in charge of the temple, and he was looking after Samuel. So Samuel heard this voice saying, "Samuel, Samuel," and he woke up and he went through to Eli. He assumed, obviously, Eli's the only other person around who could possibly have been talking to him. He didn't know that it might be God, of course. And Eli says, he obviously thinks he's imagining things, because Eli had actually gone away from God. Eli wasn't serving God as closely as he should be. So he just assumed he was imagining things. He said, "Go back to bed, Samuel." So Samuel went back to bed, and it happened again. And he's as you saw in the video, he then runs through, "Eli, it must be you, Eli. There's no one else here." And Eli says, "Oh, go back to bed. You're imagining it." And then it happens a third time, and he realizes, right. And sort of perhaps from the depths of his faith, because as I say, he'd gone away from God. He wasn't following God as closely as he should. He thought, "I wonder if that's God. Go back." And this time, if it happens again, say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." So Samuel goes back to bed and goes back to sleep. And sure enough, God wakes him up and says, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel says, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." And so he was praying, really, if you think about it. God was speaking to him, he was speaking to God, and he was praying. And then that was the start of an amazing series of responsibilities. I'm trying to think of the word. He started serving God in the temple, serving with Eli, and eventually Eli passed away, and Samuel took on his role as priest and as leader in Israel. But a lot of that time, when he was a young boy growing into a man, he served in the temple pretty much on his own or just with Eli, and he would have been working, and his responsibilities would have been done secretly. And I just wonder how many things that you do and how many things I do other people don't see, but we still know it's the right thing to do when we quietly get on with things. Perhaps it might be our homework, it might be looking after someone that no one else sees, but only us and that person we're looking after see. I know sometimes we have young carers looking after people. Not everybody sees the amazing work that you do, looking after other people. And I just got this quote here. It says here, "If you are faithful when no one is watching, like Samuel in the temple, God promises to make you the kind of person he can use." So sometimes it's those things that we do in secret, that we're helping other people. Not everybody sees it. Perhaps only God sees what we do, and we carry on those responsibilities anyway. And that's just like Samuel in the temple. He was called by God. He says, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." And Samuel then lived this amazing life serving God quietly, and then eventually very publicly when he had completed his training. So I don't know whether you're being called to be an amazing prophet who's going to be leading many people, perhaps a whole country. But whatever you do in secret, don't think any of it's wasted. Those things that you do which are really great and serve other people and help other people, God sees all of it. God sees how we help other people, even if no one else does. So God bless you in your responsibilities. We carry on with this theme. Perhaps today we've looked at those responsibilities that perhaps not everyone else sees. Do them anyway. Look out for people. Love people, even if it's in secret, just like Samuel. God bless you, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.